Gentlemen, welcome to the December 18th Zoning Board of Adjustments meeting. The next meeting will be on January 29th in the new year. And can you hear me? Yep, seems like it's on. All right, I say we continue. In that case, if everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patrick, would you be so kind as to read the preamble?
Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will proceed with the petitions in the order they are listed on the agenda unless the board deems it appropriate to take a petition out of order. State law and local ordinances set out the criteria that must be met in order for this board to grant a request. Minimum requirements are outlined on the form provided by the Community Development Office. The petitioner should proceed with this format to provide adequate justification for the board to grant the request. The chair will then open the meeting to hear testimony either for or against the request. All discussion will be between the speaker and the board. Please be respectful of all in the interest of time and refrain from repeating previous testimony. No new documentation will be accepted by the board for consideration this evening, but the board reserves the right to ask for additional testimony at any time. After hearing the facts from all parties regarding the petition, the chairman will close the public hearing and the board will deliberate and vote on the request before moving on to the next petition. Please turn off all cell phones. Thank you.
Would anybody who's going to be speaking tonight please stand to be sworn in? And raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right, thank you. So before we get started, a few things. One, Rod is out tonight, so Drew, if you could sit in for Rod. Thank you. For the items 3, 4, and 5, Strife LLC has requested a continuance to the January 29th, 2020 meeting. So I will read these in and we will vote to continue them. So the first petition is Strife LLC, variance under section 3.02, note 6 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a 3,000 square foot building 20 feet from Daniel Webster Highway, whereas 50 feet is required. Parcels located at 406 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, Aquifer Conservation, and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. Tax map 5D-4, lot 099, case 2019-39. And do I hear a motion?
To the January 29th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Kathy, seconded. So, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All abstain? All right, so 4-1-0. So the next item, also for Strife LLC, variance under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit the construction of a retaining wall 10.88 feet from the front property line, whereas 30 feet is required. Parcels located at 406 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, Aquifer Conservation, and Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. Tax map 5D-4, lot 099, case 2019-40. Do I hear a motion?
How will we continue this to the January 29th meeting?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Lynn, seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, 4-1-0. And now for the special exception. So Strife LLC special exception under 2.02.3 of the zoning ordinance to allow for a residential use of the C2 General Commercial District parcels located at 406 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial, Aquifer Conservation, Elderly Housing Overlay Districts. Tax map 5D-4, lot 099, case 2019-41.
to continue to the January 29th meeting.
Second?
Okay. Motion made by Lynn, seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
So 410 on that. All right, moving on to the next petition. So the next one is Adam Gilmer. And this is a variance under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a two-lot subdivision with one lot having 66,816 square feet of continuous non-wetland areas, whereas 100,000 square feet is required. Parcels located at 7 Fuller Mill Road in the R1 Residential by Map District, tax map 4B, lot 167-01, case 2019-42. And just before we get started, Robert, are there any staff notes for this?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Are there any staff notes for any of the next three?
Depends on how 6 and 7 go.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Greg Michael, along with Brett Allard and Paul Chisholm, to review the Gilmer petition, which is for several variances associated with a parcel of land located on Fuller Mill Road, Amherst Road, and Farmer Road. The parcel, as you can see, and it's comprised of the green area. I'm drawing my pen across it, and this maps for illustration purposes. The proposed subdivision line runs the green line that you see in this particular location. I'd like to point out a couple of things. There's an existing home in this area of the lot, and that's going to require a variance for square footage, and part of that's related to an administrative appeal. And I guess at this point, I'd like to stop it at that point. Mr. Chairman, we'd like to proceed tonight with the variance applications first, and we'll see what happens, reserving our right to deal with the administrative appeal issue. You've got a long agenda. That may take a while. And depending on how this thing plays out, we'll determine where we go with that. And I think that's the most productive use of everyone's time. I think staff probably would agree as well. I'll leave them to.
Yes, I
think
agree
I see
with that.
Robert nodding his head. So, and all of the variances are together. You read the first application. If you'd like to, really, they both are together. One deals with the other. If you grant a subdivision, you can't do it without all of the variances that we're talking about. So I recognize that they're separate. There was a reason for that we don't need to get into now. Again, I don't need to take the time to explain it, but in reality, what we're looking at are the variances that Brett will get into for both of the lots. So I think that's an important consideration. There's no reason to go through this twice because there's no way you can grant this and in effect, well, you could, but it can't work. It either works in total or it doesn't work. With that in mind, I'd point out that there is a house located in this parcel that's been here successfully for many years, a number of years. And as you can see, this wetland hydric area creates a de facto subdivision. The only way you can use the good area, I'm using the term good area of this larger parcel that we're showing, is with a variance. And that's part of the hardship that relates to this particular parcel. In other words, there isn't any way to shift land or non-hydric, non-wetland, call it what you want, soils to make this thing better. It doesn't. So keeping this together and not being able to utilize what is a perfectly functional area makes no sense. Now, Paul Chisholm's here to answer questions. They've taken a close look at this. There'll be absolutely no issues regarding septic. In fact, I think he told me in jest that they could probably get two 12-bedroom houses on this, 9 to 10 bedrooms on each lot. Now, we're certainly not going to do that. This is going to be just a lot for a single-family dwelling. That type of multifamily isn't allowed. The point I'm making at the outset is that one of the reasons we deal with the hydric, non-hydric soil sizes is generally to deal with septic issues and drainage issues, of which there will be no problems. Now, on that, I'm going to stop talking. Again, you've got a fairly long agenda. I'll let Brett take over and talk more specifically about the itemization of criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Brett Allard with Bernstein Sure. just to go over some of the dimensions here before I dive into the 5 points. The larger of the two lots here you're looking at, 3.35 acres on that total, 72,970 total upland, 66,000 and change of which is contiguous. And then on the other lot where the existing dwelling is that Attorney Michael pointed out, that would be 1.81 acres after the subdivision, 64,661 total upland, 59,000 and change of which is contiguous. That lot does have two different soil types on it, one severe, one slight. The existing dwelling and all the infrastructure is situated on slight soils. As Attorney Michael said, this lot is essentially already naturally subdivided, and we're here to request the variances for a two-lot subdivision. So the first criteria granting the variances would not be contrary to the public interest. As Attorney Michael said, the purpose of minimum upland requirements is that lots have proper areas for drainage and sufficient areas for sanitary facilities, and lot size and depth requirements, which are the other variances we need on the smaller of the two lots, are to prevent undersized lots and congestion. Given the location of the wetlands, there's no practical reason for wanting to make that smaller lot any bigger. It sort of is its own lot already, and we know everything works out there. It's all the infrastructure, the dwelling and everything is already there.
To point out one thing. When we're talking about depth, it's where your frontage is on the lot. I mean, there's plenty of depth this way. It's the depth this way. And as Brett's pointing out, we've got about 185 feet. Moving this line out another few feet, it doesn't do anything. I mean, it may make it look a little different, but it effectively does nothing to enhance the lot. As you can see, the house is already here, so moving this out is really almost a non-issue. It's a moot issue. Thank you.
You're just if you did that, you'd just be including wetlands in that smaller lot.
Yeah, you just
Okay.
increase.
Fine.
It's really a moot issue in this case
Yep.
because of this lot. Thank you.
Robert,
Yeah,
sorry.
just a point of clarification. Were both items read into the record? Because
Only the first time. I was going to read the second.
Yeah, we need to get them kind of both going right now because we're focusing discussing on the lot that's not been opened yet. That's the kind of weird part. They really both need to be opened because
Okay.
the cross discussion is really,
We can vote on them separately, but
Yeah.
they can be discussed.
yeah, that way it
Together.
frees everything up so
Sounds
there's
good.
no weirdness for the record.
That's fine.
In that case, I'll just state for the record that we are also hearing the petition for Adam Gilmer variance under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a two-lot subdivision where one lot having 78,790 square feet of total area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required. 59,258 square feet of contiguous non-wetland area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required, and 185 feet of lot depth, whereas 300 feet is required. And that parcel is located at 7 Fuller Mill Road in the R1 Residential by Map District. Tax Map 4B, Lot 167, Case 2019-43, 2019-44, and 2019-45. Thank you very
you.
much.
So I'll wrap up the public interest prong just by saying that this is we propose a single-family residential use. Those are permitted in the area. Granting the variances will not change the essential character of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. And before we continue, does the board have any questions regarding? All right. Thank you. Continue.
Granting the variances would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. The Supreme Court's held that this criteria is very closely related to the first one, so for purposes of brevity, I'll incorporate by reference my comments as to the first criteria, and then just additionally point out that the spirit of the ordinance here is to require sufficient area for a well, septic, etc. Both of the lots will have sufficient area to do that, as we've pointed out. And granting the variance would not threaten the public health, safety, or welfare and would enable a reasonable use of the property.
Any questions from the board? All right, please continue.
Substantial justice would be done by granting the variances. The courts have said that any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. Here there would be a significant loss to the applicant and any future owner of the property if the variances were denied. Due to the location of the wetlands, lot 167-1, the larger of the two lots, doesn't really serve any practical purpose to the lot as it exists today in the area that's currently developed, as Attorney Michael said, due to the location of the wetlands and the fact that nature has sort of already subdivided this property into two. But as we proposed, the subdivision would work well. The two buildable areas do work better from a practical perspective as independent lots. And so if the variances were to be denied, essentially the board would be holding that whole rear of the property out on Farmer Road would have to be vacant forever, which we don't think is necessarily the highest and best use of this property.
Any questions from the board? Okay, please continue.
Values of surrounding properties would not be diminished. Again, this is consistent with the residential uses in the neighborhood. It's also a densely wooded area, not a congested area. We're not proposing any changes to the lot fronting on Fuller Mill Road. That will stay more or less exactly the same as it is today. And I would just point out that to the extent there's any questions about sort of impacts to other surrounding properties, this would also require subdivision approval from the planning board, and they can make sure that those aspects are protected as well.
Any questions from the board before we move on to hardship?
Not necessarily our purview, but I would assume that driveway access, if this is granted, would come off of Farmer.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship here. First, there are special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. One, this is a corner lot. It has significant frontage on 3 public roads. If you add up all the frontage, it's actually 1,123 feet of total frontage on public roads. It's bisected by wetlands and has 2 distinct contiguous upland areas, each with more than 250 feet of frontage. No other lots in the area share all of these characteristics. So owing to these special conditions relative to other properties in the area, there is no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the contiguous upland lot size and depth requirements and their application here to this property. As for the lot 167, the smaller of the 2 lots, there's no fair and substantial application because everything's already there and we know it works. And again, the rear portion of the property doesn't serve any practical purpose for that existing built-up portion of the property as a practical land planning consideration. As for the larger of the 2 lots, again, not to repeat myself, but we've discussed what the purpose of these regulations are for drainage and sanitary facilities. You'll hear more from our expert engineer, Paul Chisholm, on drainage and the wetlands and the amount of we propose that the amount of contiguous upland on that larger lot is sufficient to accommodate the proposed subdivision and a new dwelling. And finally, the proposed use is reasonable. It's a single-family use, and the Supreme Court has held that, which is a permitted use, and the Supreme Court has held that permitted uses are per se reasonable.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board on unnecessary hardship?
I think at this point, then we would turn it over to our
Wait a
engineer.
minute. If you need, we've made our representations and offers of proof as to what Paul would say. If you want him to speak, I'll let him speak. I just as soon see if there's any butters that have anything to say before I put him on.
I'd agree.
I mean,
So-
that's my view of the world,
Yep.
but.
And that makes sense. I think that's fair. So I
Okay,
guess,
thank you.
I guess with that being said, I would like to open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of these petitions? Is there anybody that would like to speak against either of these petitions? All right, I will close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the board? Or do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. On item 6, the first one of the request from Adam Gilmer, petitioner owner, variance under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a 2-lot subdivision with one lot having 66,816 square feet of contiguous non-wetland area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required. Parcel is located at 7 Fuller Mill Road in the R1 Residential by Map District. Tax map 4B, lot 167-01, case number 2019-42.
Second.
If you could just append the
This
staff
item
recommendations.
Continued from the November 20th, 2019 meeting.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the staff recommendations.
Oh,
For-
subject to the staff recommendations in the memo.
Okay. Motion made by Lynn, seconded by Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain? So 5-0-0 on the first petition. And moving to the second petition, do I hear a motion?
Also move Adam Gilmer, petitioner owner, variances under lots, under section 3.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a two-lot subdivision with one lot having 78,790 square feet. Am I right? Of total area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required. 59,258 square feet of contiguous non-wetland area, whereas 100,000 square feet is required, and 185 feet of lot depth, whereas 300 feet is required. The parcel is located at 7 Fuller Mill Road in the R1 Residential by Map District, tax map 4B, lot 167, case number 2019-43, 2019-44, and 2019-45. We have staff notes on this one?
Yes.
Subject to the staff notes in the memo.
Okay. Motion made by Lynn, seconded by Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain? 5-0-0.
All right, at this time, we're going to withdraw the administrative appeal petition. I think the staff memo kind of covered that a bit. I would have done it anyway, but that's going to be withdrawn, so there's no need to consider that by the board. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that brings us to item 9 on the agenda for PMG Northeast LLC petitioner, Blue Hills Fuels LLC owner, special exception under section 2.02.3 C1 of the zoning ordinance to permit a gasoline station in the C2 General Commercial District. Parcels located at 1 Continental Boulevard in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts. Tax map 4D, lot 054, -01, case 2019-47. And are there any staff notes for this?
Just really quick, I just want to reiterate the comments in the memo for the board's benefit. There's an existing gas station on the site now, so possibly you may be questioning why a special exception's being required here. Sections 9.02D of the zoning ordinance requires that any non-conforming use of a building, which I have to back up, the gas station when it went in was a permitted use. It has since been changed to a special exception, which is a permitted use, but it requires that extra step. So basically, any change to the building, or for any, if the use of the building is moved any distance for any reason, i.e. tearing it down, they're required to get the special exception again now, because they're basically starting over. So it seems kind of silly, but that's where we have to land. Yeah.
If you'd like to get started.
Thank you. Good
And-
evening.
I'm sorry, have you
Sworn in?
signed in?
Yes.
And sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. Please state your name for the record and
My name is
Continue.
Courtney Hurst, attorney with Sheehan Finney.
Ron Lazat with Macer Consulting.
And also here with us tonight is Gary Kilfeather from the applicant PMG. As Robert outlined, our application is fairly straightforward, and we're happy to go through each of the items and each of the elements. And Ron's happy to talk through various elements, but certainly don't want to waste anybody's time and want to address any questions the board would like to hear from. So if you'd like me to jump into the specific criteria, I'm happy to do that, but just wanted to
Please.
answer any questions you might have.
yes, please. And if you could just pause at the end of each for any questions we have throughout.
Great,
you.
thank you. So the first criteria, that the specific site is an appropriate location for such use in terms of overall community development. As Robert outlined, the applicant's proposal is to utilize the property as a as a gas station. The ordinance explicitly allows for such a use in the district, and the district is specifically designed to accommodate retail businesses. Gasoline station has long operated at this property, and the property is located at the corner of Continental Boulevard and Camp Sargent Road, which obviously is a busy area of town and is an ideal location for servicing the traffic accessing the business in that area of the district.
So,
Questions?
yeah, I guess. So, because I listened to what Rob said. So you guys are tearing it down and rebuilding.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I kind of figured. All right, just long day, slow on the uptake. Thank you.
Understood.
All right.
Continue.
Okay, and the second criteria, the use as developed will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Again, because the proposed gasoline station does not actually represent any change in use, as it's currently operating as a gas station. Moreover, the neighborhood is solely commercial, no residential uses directly nearby, making it an ideal location for a gasoline station.
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right, go ahead.
The third criteria, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. As is evident from the sketch site plan that we submitted with the application, the applicant, working with Mazer Consulting, is working to carefully design the gasoline station. The design accounts for safe and efficient traffic flow, adequate sidewalks, and should not represent any nuisance or serious hazard.
Any questions? All right.
And the final criteria, adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. Again, as is evident from the sketch site plan we submitted, the applicant is proposing a carefully planned, a well-conceived facility. PMG owns and operates and supplies more than 1,600 petroleum sites and accounts in the eastern U.S. and has extensive experience in the industry, making it well-equipped to design and operate such a facility. PMG has been working in consultation with staff here in town and has also presented the plan at the June meeting to the planning board and has been working to incorporate the planning board's comments.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do at this point is go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone that would like to speak against this petition? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any questions, comments, or do I hear a motion from the board?
I have a motion.
Okay.
I motion that PMG Northeast LLC petitioner and Blue Hills Fuels LLC owner be granted special exemption under Section 2.02.3C1 of the zoning ordinance to permit a gasoline station in the C2 General Commercial District. The parcel is located at 1 Continental Boulevard in the C2 General Commercial and Aquifer Conservation Districts, tax map 4D, lot 054-01, case number 2019-47.
And there are also staff recommendations on this as well.
Subject to-
And it's subject to the staff recommendations on record.
Okay. All right. Motion made by Kathy, seconded by Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? 5-0-0.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
Make sure mic's off. Do you need?
All right, so we're up to item number 10. John Stewart petitioner and ANMI Merrimack Realty LLC, variance under section 2.02.1 of the zoning ordinance to permit professional offices, personal services, and indoor recreational facilities in the R1 residential by soil district. The parcel is located at 25 Craftsman Lane in the R1 residential by soils Aquifer Conservation District and Wellhead Protection Area, tax map 2A, lot 005, case 2019-48. And if you could please go ahead and sign in, state your name for the record.
What's it? Yeah, I was just gonna say, again, due to the overlap
other
between them, I would open both.
Okay. In that case, we'll open the next petition as well. Item 11, John Stewart and Gloria Heath, owners, or petitioner and owner. Variance under section 2.02.1 of the zoning ordinance to permit professional offices, personal services, and indoor recreational facilities on a portion of the property to be transferred by subsequent lot line adjustment in the R1 Residential by Soil District. Parcels located at 21 Craftsman Lane in the R1 Residential by Soil, Aquifer Conservation District, and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 2A, lot 006, case 2019-49. Please go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Thomas Burns. I'm a senior project manager with TF Moran. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. John Stewart of Bedford Martial Arts. And we're here tonight to seek a variance for the proposed commercial use of the site at 25 Craftsman Lane. This is a parcel that's located in the residential zoning district. However, it's been a commercial use for many decades on that site. It was most recently used as a motorcycle sales and service center on the property. This is located directly opposite the Merrimack Valley Baptist Church. The applicant's proposing to utilize the existing building to house a martial arts studio with an associated after-school program, which is consistent with operations that he currently has in Bedford and Nashua as well. This involves the after-school program where the students come to the facility and they're able to take a martial arts lesson, and he provides after-school care for them as a licensed state daycare facility, and also is open to the public for martial arts lessons as well at the site. There's additional space beyond what he would be using for the martial arts facility, so we're proposing that as available as office space for complementary uses to his operations. A lot of the office space will be utilized by the applicant, and then he may lease out some of the office space as well. As part of this proposal, we're looking at doing a lot line adjustment with the adjacent property at 21 Craftsman Lane to provide sufficient land area for to make sure that we have room for adequate parking on the site, as well as for providing a screened play area for the after-school program. And again, this is where this has been a commercial use for many decades for the site. What we're looking to do is basically formalize that as an approved use of the lot. And based on that, I'm happy to go through the criteria as it's outlined for the variance. And
Okay. Yes, please go ahead and just stop at the end of each point if you could.
absolutely. So number one, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Again, we feel this proposal is consistent with the public interest, given the size, nature, and history of the existing structure as a commercial use for so many decades, and the ability for both the building and the site to readily support the proposed use without significant alteration to either. The proposed uses would not alter the essential character of the property or the surrounding neighborhood, nor would they affect the safety, health, and welfare of the public.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board on that? All right, go ahead and continue.
Number two, the spirit of the ordinance is observed because this proposal would create a number of complementary uses on what has historically been a commercial property. The size and nature of the existing structure makes the uses reasonable and appropriate for the site. These uses are consistent with the history of the site and would be compatible with the neighborhood, particularly with an after-school program located across from the church, and as well as around residential properties, being a non-intensive use for the site. It would also help to maintain and protect the value of the properties and improve the overall aesthetic of the site.
And just, I guess, to confirm, the use is not changing at all. It's actually just being formalized, correct?
This would be a new use coming into the site, because
Robert?
Yeah. So there's been a long history of commercial uses on the property that have varied over time. None of them have received the proper approval to be there. So the last use was a motorcycle operation, this being now, indoor recreation, personal service. So basically, we took the stance when the property came up for sale, given the history in the file that the town has been trying to get compliance on this property for a number of years, that whoever was coming in needed to secure the appropriate approvals to get the commercial uses authorized. So that's what these guys are trying to do.
Sounds
Okay.
reasonable.
Thank you for the clarification. And any other questions from the board? continue, please.
Granting the variance would do substantial justice because there would be no harm to the general public or the surrounding properties, given the nature and the history of the site and the existing building and the ability of both to support the proposed uses. Additionally, substantial justice to the applicant would be provided by allowing for reasonable reuse of an existing commercial property, which otherwise would be prohibited by strict adherence to the zoning ordinance.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? Continue.
For the following reasons, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. The proposed uses would be a continuation of the general use of the site and the building and can be easily accommodated within the existing structure. Additionally, these uses would be considered less impactful on the lot than the prior uses, given prior outside display and service work that was on site, and would therefore help to maintain the character of the surrounding neighborhood.
Any questions from the board? All right, you want to continue on to unnecessary hardship?
Yes. So owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because, number one, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, because again, strict conformance to the zoning ordinance would create an unnecessary restriction on what has historically been operated as a commercial property and would require the redevelopment of the site and the building.
And you can go ahead to 2 as well.
Okay. And then the proposed use is a reasonable one because it allows for the continued commercial use of the site within a building that is appropriately sized and constructed to accommodate the users while maintaining the essential character of the neighborhood.
All right, I guess with that being said, are there questions on unnecessary hardship from the board?
Nope.
All right. Are there any additional comments you'd like to make before we open to the public hearing?
No, not at this time.
Okay. In that case, what I would like to do is open this to the public hearing and see if anybody would like to speak in favor of this petition. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? All right, in that case, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for the board to deliberate.
I'd like to make a motion to approve John Stewart petitioner and ANMI Merrimack Realty LLC owner variance under section 2.02 of the zoning ordinance to permit a professional offices, personal services, and indoor recreation facilities in the R1 Residential by Soils District. The parcel is located at 25 Craftsman Lane in the R1 Residential by Soils, Aquifer Conservation Districts, and Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map 2A, lot 005, case number 2019-48. And should the board approve it, the petitioner shall also obtain a variance in case number 2019-48 and
49.
49. I think that was it, right?
There was also
Oh,
approval
yeah,
from
and the
planning board.
petitioner shall obtain approval of the planning board, from the planning board for the proposed lot line adjustment, a site plan for the proposed martial arts studio, accessory after-school program, and professional office space.
Motion made by Patrick, seconded by Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain. So 5-0-0. And then if I could hear a motion for the second petition.
A motion to approve variance under section 2.02.1 of the zoning ordinance to permit professional offices, personal services, and indoor recreational facilities on a portion of the property to be transferred by a subsequent lot line adjustment in the R1 Residential by Soils District. The parcel is located at 21 Craftsman Lane in the R1 Residential by Soils, Aquifer Conservation Districts, and Wellhead Protections Area. The tax map 2A, lot 006, case number 2018-49, with staff recommendations.
All right, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Patrick, seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? 5-0-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now on to item number 12. Donald Belial petitioner and Building Properties LLC owner. Special exception under sections 2.02.3.c.1.d and 2.02.3.c.1.f of the zoning ordinance to permit automobile sales, storage, service, and repair in the C2 General Commercial District. Parcels located at 719 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial District, R4 residential districts, and planned residential development overlay, tax map 7E, lot 052, case 2019-50.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Okay. Ben, would you be able to sit in for Lynn for this case? All right, thank you. So if you go ahead and sign in and then state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ben Osgood. I'm an engineer. I'm from Salem, New Hampshire.
Okay.
I'm here with Donald Belial. He's the applicant. What we're here for is asking to have an auto sales in the C2 district. It is at 719 Daniel Webster Highway, which is an existing commercial facility. It's got 31,720 square feet and 100 feet of frontage on Daniel Webster Highway. It's about 400 feet south of Brunswick Road on the east side of the road. I believe it was formerly owned by a landscape company. It is primarily paved with either bituminous pavement or gravel. It has a small office building out front, and it has a shop building behind that. Mr. Belial runs his business out of there now, and he'd like to add the auto sales and the repair of those autos that are for sale at the facility. So I don't know if you want me to go right through to the reasons we feel that it would be an appropriate use.
Actually, yeah, if you could step through the specific criteria and just stop at the end of each one so that we can ask questions if we have any. Thank you.
So in regards to the site, is appropriate location for such a use in terms of the overall community development. It's an existing commercially developed site with a paved parking areas, a sales office, an auto prep building already in place. The surrounding properties in the immediate area include other automobile-based uses such as convenience stores, a car wash, automobiles, sales, and service businesses and gas stations. Specifically, I believe there's about 7 or 8 other automobile uses within a half mile in either direction on this section of Daniel Webster Highway.
All right. Any questions from the board? Go ahead and continue.
The use of the development will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The properties on either side are also zoned C-2, and there is a substantial wooded buffer between the proposed use and the residential units located to the rear. Automobile sales does not produce any obnoxious odors, excessive noise, or other detrimental effects on the abutting properties. And I should mention too that the site is 100% fenced, so it doesn't allow people to get into the site or things to leave the site.
Okay. Any questions?
So, yeah, I would agree with you that generally speaking, auto sales doesn't produce obnoxious odors, excessive noise, but repair does. Air tools, and things to that nature. I know the site. I know it was formerly Daly's Landscaping that's located there, or was located there. I also know that although you are correct, there is a tree line buffer around there. It's actually relatively thin between Bernard's Road. I've been down Bernard's Road, and I know that could see clearly into Daly's back area. So I guess my concern is that when you start taking it off tires and using pneumatics and air tools, that's actually going to be kind of loud.
Well, that work would all be done within the building that's there. There's a
right, but
large building.
I've been around car dealerships, and I've worked in car dealerships, and I've worked in repair bays, and I know for a fact summertime you open up those doors because it's hot in there, because I've been working on cars in the summer, and you can easily hear air tools.
Right.
So the noise would be, I understand sales, you're right, there's not going to be any noise
Right.
at the sales, but
Right.
Yeah.
I also believe that the repairs will be minimal. I mean, these are cars that Mr. Belial would bring in for sale. Most of the repairs will be minor. I mean, it's not as if they're selling tires and they're gonna be going all the time.
1 out of 10.
So I guess my question is, when you have the service, so if someone wants to come and get their oil changed, they don't necessarily go to your shop to do it. The only service you're doing is on the cars that you're gonna be selling
Exactly.
Correct.
to make them state inspection.
Right.
So there's not gonna be a flow of customers coming in to get oil changes and tires and trannies and all that.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, thanks.
There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Adequate access with proper sight distances provided. The driveways exist there now. The site has ample existing paved parking areas and driveways to support the business. The roadway does not have sidewalks and is not the type of roadway where pedestrians are walking up and down extensively up that section of road. So, the business again will be all mainly just storing the vehicles, working on them out in the shop building in the back, and there shouldn't be any adverse effect, hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
Are there any questions from the board for this point? All right.
And adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. The property has sufficient existing parking. We've shown the plan. We've shown there's ample space for 30 to 40 vehicles for sale. And it already has an office facility and a shop area for the vehicle prep.
All right.
Go ahead. My only concern again is, the noise. You say you're gonna only be servicing vehicles you're bringing in. I get it. I know the location. It's actually wouldn't be a bad place for a small dealership to be in, selling used cars. I guess the only other concern would be just and obviously this probably fall a little bit more for planning, but making the environmental concern, oils, fluids, disposal, making sure that's probably a little bit more planning, but I like to
Yeah.
look at it as safety as well, which is a ZBA concern. So, and then I don't know, is there any way to ensure that that the service is just service on the vehicles and not going to be service opened up for the public
That's
once
also,
that's approved?
That's also really a planning board call.
Yeah, the ZBA, because that's basically, because it's a special exception, they have to get through you first. You can stress that as part of a condition of approval, that the board, I don't want to say conditions, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but basically acknowledges that the applicant has stressed that repairs will be limited strictly to the cars that he's bringing in for his sale, not to general public, something along those lines. And we can stress that to the planning board as well, that any expansion of that in the future would require additional review.
I would probably stress that. But
We don't have any problem with that provision. It would just strictly will service the vehicles that he's gonna sell. He does not intend to do an auto repair facility for outside vehicles.
No, and I mean, and I like I said, I know the property, and I'm sure you're gonna go in and clean it up, because right now it looks a little in disrepair. So I'm sure, from an aesthetic standpoint, it'd be nice to get that cleaned up and look nice. So I totally support that. It's just as long as, obviously, we're looking at the service of the vehicles that are the ones you're bringing in, and obviously planning is gonna take a look at it from the chemicals and oils and all that standpoint of it. But I just wanted to kind of get that idea of it, how they were gonna do that. So, that's all I have.
Okay. So with that being said, are there any further comments that you have before I open the public hearing?
I believe we're all set.
Thank you. In that case, what I'd like to do is open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for deliberation from the board.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Donald Belial, petitioner in Buildin Properties LLC, owner special exceptions under section 2.02.3C.1.d and 2.02.3.c.1.f of the zoning ordinance to permit automobile sales, storage, service, and repair in the C2 General Commercial District. The parcel is located at 719 Daniel Webster Highway in the C2 General Commercial R4 Residential Districts and the Planned Residential Development Overlay, Tax Map 7E, Lot 052, case number 2019-50. There is no staff note. Wait, actually, there is. With the staff notes, petitioner shall obtain site plan approval from the planning board for the proposed automotive sales, storage, service, and repair facility.
Did you also want to append your?
Would like to append that the service is based upon cars that are being brought in for sale, yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Motion made by Patrick, seconded by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain? So, 401. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen. Good luck. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, so we're on to item 13, Chestnut Hill Properties LLC, petitioner owner, variance under section 3.08.2 of the zoning ordinance to permit an approved but not yet constructed cluster residential development to have a density of 77 lots, whereas 71 lots are permitted per the variance that was granted on January 30th of 2014. The parcels are located at Bannon Circle and Ritterbush Court, approved but not constructed roads, in the R1 Residential by Map District, Tax Map 5B, lots 002, 005, 007, 008, 009-01 through 009-71, case 2019-51. Okay. And just to clarify, Lynn is back, so we now have a board of 5. So Ben, you're back to alternate, having a. So if you go ahead and get started.
Good evening again, Attorney Greg Michael, along with Kevin Anderson from Meridian Land Services, to discuss what was just read, which is a variance under 3.082 to allow 6 additional cluster lots in an approved, what is now a 71-lot cluster subdivision, as you can see out off Old Blood Road in Merrimack. This is a very unique parcel of land. This has been before the board, this board, on 3 prior occasions. It's also been before the planning board. It's a fully approved project at the 71-lot level. There's quite a bit of history associated with this. And at the outset, I'm going to ask that we incorporate by reference the minutes of case 20916, 201126, and case 2014-02. And respectively, the first case was this board allowed use of this parcel in the R1 zone as a cluster subdivision. That was the first variance. Second variance was to allow 6 additional lots. I'll explain that in a moment. The third variance in 2014 was a renewal of both those variances. All of these were approved by this board. I'd also point out that this matter went before the planning board before it even came to you folks back in 2011. And they agreed that a cluster here made sense based upon the unique features and location of this land. In addition, we went to the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission agreed that this was the most suitable way to develop this property. Now, I've got 16 pages of notes and points as it relates to this. I want to make it clear I've incorporated by reference all of the prior testimony, evidence, and votes, and decisions by this board into this case to try and keep this moving. We could be here a while with it. But the long and the short of it is this. We're back here for 6 more lots to make a total of 77 cluster lots. They can easily fit within, I'm going to point to the kind of the boundary area of this. As you can see, this is the parcel. It's 192 acres now. One chunk was subdivided off. It's a very large piece. These proposed cluster lots are quite large. In fact, many of them are more than an acre. And in the R3 zone, if you've got water and sewer, municipal, you can build on these as just regular old lots. But this is the R1 zone. Now, having said that, we're going to be able to put in here, we can make this work. And we didn't want to go to the expense to, engineer everything here. I brought Kevin to assure you that what we do will remain within the kind of the close, if you will, of these lots. It's the first thing. Second, this will have no impact on our roads or our drainage. And we have to go to the planning board to get this further approved, and they'll be looking at that very carefully as well. So I'm just trying to point out the underpinnings of where we are with this. So the open space that you see will essentially be the open space that still exists and was desired by all boards and commissions in the town of Merrimack. Now, why are we here? This is approved. The plans are recorded. I want to make that clear. The prior variances are in effect. They're in place. That doesn't change. What has changed is this. I was involved in this project going way back to 2010 and 11. And at the time it was designed, it was functionally meant to hook to the Madeline Bennett Drive sewer, which goes to the middle school. And this is the middle school property here. You can see it right here. This is Madeline Bennett. We went through a lot of time and machinations with this to hook up, and we discovered we went to the town. Then the town said, and I will tell you that our town manager, I think, had left, and Paul McCauley was the deputy acting town manager. Great guy, and he learned a lot through the process as well. We discovered 3 things. 3 things. First, the town had never accepted the road. Second, the town had never accepted the sewer. Third, there still isn't a certificate of occupancy for the school. Just so we're clear on that. And the school wasn't anxious to let us hook into this sewer because it was discovered that this sewer, and I'm not an engineer, Paul may be able to speak to it. They weren't the ones engineering this, thank goodness. He probably wouldn't be here tonight. There were problems with the sewer that were never remedied. And at the time, the developer at that time was prepared to go to bat to do some repairs on the sewer line. We could never get consensus from the school and the town to go in and do it. But we kept moving ahead with our approvals, thinking, hey, we're prepared to do something here. That's what brought us to the board to get the 6 additional lots, to try and defray what then was approximately a $450,000 to $600,000 that my client was prepared to put up to repair this and to fix it. We still couldn't get a consensus. It's only been since the last few weeks that finally there has been further review of this by both the school and the town and my client to try and reach a consensus to deal with this sewer, which is going to have to be dealt with at some point. I want to make that clear. This thing may be leaking. We've had studies done. The town did a study. We did a study. We did a follow-up review of this with cameras, borings, call it whatever you want. And basically it's in sand. This is no ledge really out here. This is in sand, and there's some issues with it. And again, I'm not here to get into the technical side of it. Suffice to say, my client is now prepared. The latest estimate is $1.2 million to replace the line. Replace it. Fix it. Replace it. you know, it's the old story. There's nothing for nothing. You know, everybody's got to work together. And also, there were some further off-site improvements that the town wanted to Old Blood Road, because that will serve as secondary safety emergency access for the school. The school is on a road that technically is too long and should have an emergency access. Just so you know. Having said that, arrangements between my client and the town contain a condition that we get 6 additional cluster lots. I'm putting this right out to you here. To help defray the cost of $1.2 million that he is prepared to post with the town in cash, along with $385,000 for further off-site improvements to Old Blood in cash, to try and get this project moving and to get the sewer resolved once and for all with little or no taxpayer expense. I want to make that clear. And I made that kind of clear the last time around, back in 2011 or 14. Doesn't matter. We're here in 2019, but not for long, I guess. Now, I want to make a couple of points well known here. The condition that was placed by this board, you granted us the right to cluster, but it was based upon a condition of no more than the grid lots we could get if we gridded it out. Now, there's wipe this piece of property out, develop the whole thing, don't leave open space. The best yield plan at that time was 65 lots. We've looked at it again. We might be able to get a few more lots, but that's not before the board tonight. This board restricted it. That's why we had to come back in 2011 and later in 14 for the 6 additional lots, because there was a restriction based upon that number, that 65 number. And that was approved by the board. Now we're looking for 6 more lots. In the scheme of things, 6 lots in this cluster, you will never notice it. You will never see it. It's not going to, you driving through, you would never be able to tell, well, oh, gee whiz, there's 77 lots and not 71 lots. You're not going to be able to tell that. I can tell you that right now. But in point of fact, that condition is still there, which is why it brings us back to this board. And this whole little, the bricks are lined up, the dominoes, relates to what this board may be willing to do. We believe we meet the 5 points of law. We've met it 3 times. 3 times we've met it. But the town, the school district, staff cannot waive zoning. The only legal board that can waive zoning is this board. And I respect that. I respect that greatly. That's why you exist. Getting back to the number of units before I plunge any further into this, we could grid it out, 65 units. The clustering is a bit more based upon what I'm telling you. With a grid, we could just put septics and wells in here and not extend the sewer. And certainly we would not be replacing the town's sewer line. We would not be doing that. I want to make that crystal clear. And we wouldn't need the permission of this board. We could go back to the planning board and do a grid subdivision. We don't want to do that. We don't think that's in the best interests of anyone, and none of the boards, including this board, felt that to be the case over the past few years. It was felt that to create and allow this open space was very important. I'll show you why. I had Meridian pull this together. Our parcel is this blue area that you see, the dark blue. This is all, the green is all town conservation land. This is the El Carre parcel. I know the family. Mr. El Carre, in fact, he recently passed away. And I know the Conservation Commission has expressed strong interest over the years in trying to acquire this. And they may very well acquire it, but that's not for tonight. The point I'm making is we abut this. This creates a link to other conservation area. And our acreage, we're going to be leaving close to 120 acres of open space, of the 193 acres that we have. A very large portion of our land will go into open space. And as you can see, there is connectivity to the balance of the town-held conservation area. This is important because when you talk about rural character, you know, one of the reasons we had the R1 district and they said no clustering, it was based upon these 15-acre parcels that really didn't cluster very well. I want to point that out to you because that's the minimum required. This parcel, as I said, is very unique, and this board has found it unique in the past. I've got other comments to make. I'll reserve them if I need them. But I wanted to give you the background and a direct answer, and it's not an answer, but a statement as to, you know, what we're doing here and why we're here. I think this is important. I would also point out that I'll cite to you the Garrison case, and I've cited that to the board in the past, and that applies very clearly to this case. Garrison, and I discussed this with the board on a previous occasion, that as it relates to the hardship factor and the reasonableness of considering an alternative use, the Garrison case said this factor, this reasonableness, is it unreasonable to restrict it, includes a consideration of the landowner's ability to receive a reasonable return of his or her investment. And dollars and cents apply to that criteria as stated by the court. You don't need expert testimony, however, and I don't think it requires a team of experts or accountants or CPAs to tell us that if we're going to put $1.2 million into that sewer and also additional off-site funds into Old Blood, that requires a degree in accounting to understand that that's going to take a lot of money and that significantly impacts this project to the point where it's likely we will reconfigure and redo this project and maybe come back with septics. And I know that there were applications before this board for that specific purpose that aren't before the board right now. We don't want to do that. We think the better move is to keep it a well-designed and smaller cluster. Does anybody have a guess, if this land were not in the R1, how many units we could get under the cluster regulation? Anybody have an idea? I'll tell you, about 170 units. Did you hear what I said? 170 units based upon the soils and what we could get using the regular cluster formula if we were not an R1. The grid, again, about 65. Our cluster, 77, which leaves a significant amount of open space to, again, maintain the rural character and to comply with many aspects of our own town master plan. If you've taken a look at the master plan lately, you'll find out that some of the things that they talk about in rural locations, towns have looked to techniques. This is our master plan, land use policy, such as cluster development and smaller lots to provide growth while preserving rural character. And this was echoed by the planning board, our planning board, during the approval process of this project. 2.8, create incentives. You like this? We don't have any, by the way, but create incentives for open space development to enhance protection of open space. 3.8, ensure that there are other housing choices available to meet the needs of the current and future generations of Merrimack. And the follow-on to that is create incentive for open space development to enhance protection of open space while providing for a more diverse range of housing types. I'm not going to go any further. I could keep reading this. But our own recent master plan echoes the feelings of the planning board and our own conservation commission and this board on 3 prior occasions. I think I'll just move into the requirements. I think you've probably heard me.
I had a quick question before you do that.
Yeah,
Trevor.
go ahead.
What is the expected median house price for these houses?
We're not sure of that at this point. I mean,
I do, because we, no, you made a lot of mention to recovery of funds that are being put out by the individual.
I'm gonna give you a wild guess. Okay, 250 to 500. Now that would be that's a broad range.
Pretty
but,
broad range.
Yeah, but you know the cost of land these days, the cost, the infrastructure here. You know, just that. Wait a minute. The 1.2 is just to fix the town's piece of this. We got to bring it in and hook it up.
Right.
We got to bring the water in. We got to bring the roads in, underground utilities. I mean, this is a very, how do I put it, investment-heavy project to make it work. And we think it's worth making it work, and I think it's worth making it work right. And this board found that on 3 different occasions, that this was the best way to develop this land. Not contrary to the public interest. To be contrary, it must unduly and in a marked degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance's basic zoning objectives. Well, to be quite candid, the zoning objectives here is to develop a good residential use in the residential zone, and this is it. Here, the residential cluster use, again, allowed by this board was 71 units. If not in the R1, 170 units could be provided. I've also made clear the number of grid units that we could get. We believe the use is consistent with the size and location of this parcel. It will create substantial open space which connects with other town open space, and the cluster lots that we want can be done within the closed area, as I've shown you, of the plan that we currently have. It'll have to be changed slightly, but that's not a big problem, and I've made it clear the rationale for it. The subdivision will remain compliant with the 4 purposes of Section 3.0801 of the cluster regulations. I didn't read you those. That's different than the master plan. To promote conservation of the natural environment, to establish living areas within the town, to provide for a balance of community needs, to provide for an efficient use of land, streets, and utility systems, to stimulate new approaches to land and community development. Clearly, this project satisfies those goals. Again, another factor is that no public or private rights will be adversely impacted. The impact of the 7 additional lots, based upon where we are with this project, is almost insignificant. It won't impact anything. It won't change our drainage, our road system, or any of the aspects of the project that make it such a good project. We believe there's a significant public benefit, again, by replacing and repairing the sewer line that I've described. I'm not going to repeat myself again. Any questions about that?
Continue.
Spirit of the ordinance is observed. By changing a conventional grid subdivision, which I've described, to a 77-lot cluster on 193 acres of land is clearly within the spirit of the ordinance based upon our master plan, the cluster desires, if you want to use it, the feelings and the professional opinions of our planners, this zoning board, and the Conservation Commission. With all due respect to everybody, this is clearly within the spirit of the ordinance to allow this development versus gridding out that land. I've gone over the master plan items with you. I could detail it further. I don't think that I need to. We believe that the amendment to the approved plan protects the environment. It removes the use of septics. It remains a safe, well-designed system. We'll have, again, underground utilities for water, sewer, and so forth, and it benefits from the open space design that I've been discussing with you. Any questions about that?
So just for clarification,
Yes, sir.
because I've seen this a couple times.
You have?
over the years.
Your name was in the minutes.
Yes,
Because I read them all.
times, yes.
And I read them all.
And not in a positive way sometimes.
Well-
So if this is pushed, if this is approved, we're not coming back in here again to ask for septics, because it says right you hear
No,
that your
no.
spirit of the ordinance is you're going to have
No.
that sewage.
No. If this is approved, we have a how do I put this politely? We've got to deal with the town. We have an agreement with the town to post the money and get this moving, get this fixed so we can get moving.
So if
And
it's
that agreement, by the way, I think is a public document. I don't think there's anything hidden about it, quite frankly.
So if it's not approved, does that mean that you're coming back in and looking for septic?
We may. We have that right. We may. At that point, we'll have the ultimate hardship, what we believe is the best development scheme without the ability to hook up.
Okay.
It's that simple. I don't mean to be direct tonight, but I think I need to be direct.
Yep.
It is what it is. Any further questions about the second criteria? I'll move on. Substantial justice. It's done when the loss to the applicant and denying the variance would exceed any gain to the general public. In this case, if you want to, we could almost flip it and say substantial justice, there's a significant loss to the town for us getting 6 additional lots on an already approved 71 lot cluster. Because we won't be doing the sewer. I hate to be blunt, but I need to be. I want to be careful and I want to state it as it is. There's absolutely no gain to the public here on these 6 lots versus the significant burden on my client to have to reconfigure, try to use septics, and not get to hook up to a sewer. So I believe that substantial justice is clear in this case, that if you put the scale up like this, and we don't get it, there's a huge drop on our side of the fence versus any gain to the public in this case. Again, we believe this is a very feasible project and it would be fair and appropriate on all sides to allow the project to proceed as presented tonight. Any questions about that? I'll proceed. Pardon me?
I've got a question, just to clarify some numbers.
Go ahead.
The variance that allows for the 171,
No, we don't have a variance. I'm saying if we were not in the R1 zone,
I'm saying the last variance that was granted,
6 additional lots.
which gave us 71 lots total,
Correct.
and that was predicated on the developer
Doing the sewer.
fixing, not replacing, but
Fixing
fixing
the
the
sewer
sewer
was-
to the tune of 1.2.
No. Back then, to the tune of the estimate from the Wright Pierce report was 450 to 600.
Okay.
That's
That-
what I think
Mr.
that's.
Attorney Michael, I'm just trying to clarify a couple of things from my point here. So, at that point, he was going to repair the sewer to the tune of about 600,000. Now, what
yes.
he's saying is,
Further review, it has to be replaced.
and so he's agreeing to double what he was willing to contribute
Yeah. To replace
in
it.
order for the town, not the school district, which is a whole nother story, but for the town to actually replace the sewer in exchange for, in order to make it feasible, that extra 600, he's looking for 6 additional lots. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Diminution of value. Again, a conventional subdivision allowed by right has no open space dedication, there's no requirement. The grid would impact the entire property with infrastructure such as additional roads, septics, wells, more tree removal. There would be probably no connection to the town conservation land. There's no requirement for it. Alternatively, with 6 additional lots that you won't notice, you won't really see, we've talked about what we believe is a fair, balanced approach to this. There'll be no diminution of any value adding 6 lots to this already approved cluster subdivision. Any questions?
The only question I have is, in adding the additional units, is it reducing the size of each individual unit?
I would say 2 or 3 lots will be reduced, but you have to understand. I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not trying to be like Richard Nixon, you know, I'm glad you asked me that. I'm not doing that to you tonight.
You're dating yourself.
I won't do that, but anyway. Meadowwoods, clusters, these are all clusters now. Meadowwoods, the lot size, 11,850, there's some upwards of 30,000 square feet. Meadowwoods, cluster lots. Greenfield Farms, I'm sure you guys are familiar with these. 9,800 square feet to 17,300 square feet. Those are the parameters of those lots. This particular subdivision, get your pencils out. They start at 23,400 and go up to 79,400. You with me now? So yes, we're gonna, some of the larger lots is where we're gonna reconfigure this to get those 6 lots in. But it's not gonna make small lots. These lots are already twice or 3 times the size of a couple of other clusters that I'm pointing out to you. But yes, it's gonna be, which we wanna keep it within the confines of where we are. So yes, there will be some subtraction and addition to create those lots. Have I answered your question?
Yes.
We don't
Thank
think it'll have any impact on the overall value or the ability to have very nice lots in this cluster. But I just wanted to point those numbers out to you, just to give you a kind of a example, something to think about.
Okay, thank you. And Lynn, you had another question?
Follow-on question, you had
Yeah.
a different layout up here a minute ago that showed the lots.
The lots are here at home.
Yep, that's the one I want.
This is just.
Does that grid show 71 lots or 77 lots?
71.
Okay,
They have not, we wanted to come, before we start going to the expense, I'm being honest now, of reconfiguring already approved subdivision, we wanted to come to the board.
how would you anticipate adding 6?
Take a look at this right here.
Yep.
Take a look at these 3. We can take a look at these 2 right here. We're gonna get 3.
Okay, that was,
I mean, just as an example, we're probably gonna get, 1 or 2 more lots right in here. We're probably gonna get
Okay,
something up in here.
that's fine.
But the point is, we're working within this.
That's all I'm,
Working off the larger lots.
that's all I'm asking.
Okay. Unnecessary hardship, owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in an unnecessary hardship. 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because, well, number 1, this board found that it was a hardship not to allow a cluster in that, on that particular piece in the R1 zone. I mean, if you look at your minutes and findings, you'll see that. But more importantly, this is a very unique piece of property. And as I've said, we could grid it out to almost what we're asking for cluster. We could grid it out 65 units, large lots, no open space. And we believe that based upon its location, based upon its contours, based upon the fact that we can maintain the 120 acres of open space, that this is a unique feature of this specific parcel. And again, it was so found by this board on 3 distinct occasions. Next, how many properties in this area abut an unapproved municipal sewer? Huh? Somebody give me a number? There aren't any. There aren't any. And yet we went into this believing we could hook into what we felt was a town municipal sewer. How many properties in this area actually abut significant town conservation land that I've shown you? Not many. Not the way we're talking here. And not the way we're prepared to give up potential open space that we could use to have it merge and have it available as part of the town's, again, kind of conservation infrastructure. Again, the use of this was decided by the board. We're not talking about use tonight. I want to make that clear. That was decided in 2011. What we're talking about is the restriction on the number of lots. And we believe that based upon the location of this and the nature of the, situation we find ourselves in, that putting sewer to this property makes eminent sense in these conditions. Again, there's no fair and substantial relationship between whatever this 71 lot restriction might be when we look at the general public interest and our interests. We believe that there is no significant connection that we can point to that would detract from the fact that this is a unique parcel and it's the best use of the parcel. I want to make that clear. Strict application of the ordinance in this case may result in a conventional subdivision. I know I'm repeating myself. Residential use is allowed, therefore the proposed use is a reasonable use. In other words, this is a residentially zoned area. We're just developing it in a different way than what you might find, which is the grid. Our development can easily support the 6 additional units. We're not going to injure anybody's rights. We're going to do what we think is right as it relates to the deal that we have with the town, but it requires affirmative action from this board. Thank you.
Go ahead. So in the 2014 meeting, you had mentioned earlier that the cost of the fixed sewer would be about 1.2 million.
Now it is.
Now it is.
Now, not
Because it was
no.
400,000 to 650,000 in 2014.
Back
I know
then.
the price of inflation and all that, but why are we? What's the?
That was just
That was fixing portions of it in hopes of correcting some of the issues. Now, the latest is it should be replaced. The whole,
Totally different.
and we're gonna, wait, it's plastic out there. We're planning to put in ductile iron and do it right, so it can survive the movement. That's a fairly wet area out there. I think we're all aware of that.
Are you
And-
talking about what the town is going to do, or what
So
you're
the town's
gonna,
gonna do it. We're putting up the money to do it.
you're putting up part of the money?
We're putting up, we figure all of the money. We're putting it all up.
In,
The latest quote is 1.2 million. We're putting it all up.
okay,
Every penny of it.
yeah, I understand that.
I mean, the proviso is if they happen to be able to get it done for $1 million, we get some money back.
Okay,
But we're not, we're not expecting it back. We're gonna post with them $1 million too, plus the 385 for the road.
the town is managing the project, correct?
Yes,
Thank you.
we are not.
Yep.
That's the way it's set up.
It should be.
That's correct.
All right, any further questions from the board?
Not at this time.
I think what I'll do is open the public hearing, or public portion. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? All right. Okay. The only thing I would ask is if you would go ahead, sign in, state your name for the record, and speak specifically with us. We can then. What's that? Have you been sworn in, sir? Have you been sworn in?
Not
Okay.
tonight.
Okay. After you sign in, if you could just raise your right hand. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Just some clarification. The numbers.
I need his name for the record, please.
And if you could
Tom
please.
Feller, Tom Feller, 27 Mary meeting,
Okay.
downhill.
Keep directed this way.
Yes.
Just a couple of clarifications. The buffers. The buffers are going to stay exactly as they are
So in this,
between those of us who are abutting it on Mary Meeting Drive.
from what was said, that it will be about the same footprint as it
Not a-
is now.
Well,
Yes.
So yes.
They will stay.
okay. The holding ponds, I'm told the drainage is going to stay exactly the same. That's what Attorney Michael said.
Lynn?
Let me,
There won't be any,
if we approve this tonight,
yes?
it is gonna be subject to the developer going back to the planning board, and the planning board are the ones that will address those specific issues. Because they've changed what they were approved to do.
I only mention it because Attorney Michael said that nothing's going to change in regard to the
So-
the drainage.
No, you're absolutely right. Based upon what he stated under the spirit of the ordinance, the subdivision not only ensures the protection of the public and the environment through appropriate road, lot drainage, and water storage, but realize the benefits. So based on his comments there, none of that is going to change based upon
Right.
what they're
That's-
going to do.
That's what I understood him to say.
Yes.
Yes.
My problem with that is, if you've got 71 sites, and now you have 77 sites, you have 6 more sites. That's 8.5% more sites, 8.5% more driveways, roofs. You've got to have more drainage. So are the holding ponds changing or not? Seems like that.
I would imagine that they would have, stuff like that would have to be taken into
Right.
consideration. Yes.
The other thing, and I think it's great that it's finally going to get someplace, but that's what I thought when it was $600,000. All right? And it was several years ago. Price has doubled. What is the issue? And I know Attorney Michael says there's an agreement. Agreements get broken, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Is it a contract between the town, the developer, and the school district?
It's on the town website.
What? I know, I just said, is it there?
The
There is a
agreement is on there.
contract?
Yes.
You can
Among
go
the
to
three
the town
parties.
website and see what the town
Okay.
has.
So,
agreed to.
so the execution of the contract will be done in a timely manner so that the 77 doesn't become 84 because, again, there's hardship, if you know what I mean. We started out with 63, actually, at one time. Then the number was 64, then it was 66, then it was 72. We spun off one, that's how it got to 71, then it went to 77. And there's still some other houses that are gonna be built, separate from this. So the 196 acres has gone down to 193, and I don't know whether that includes the others, but, I'm sure you're gonna have to improve this. I guess I would if I were in your spot, just because it makes sense for the town. This is where the whole thing started, makes sense for the town. But the abutters are not happy, that's for sure, because the R1 has been, changed. It's not gonna have the same meaning going forward as it had prior to this. That site is no more unique than any other site in the world.
It is, and I think one of the previous times that we heard this, one of the discussions that came up was if they do build the 65 lots in the normal grid layout, they could go to septic and they could have their properties built closer to you, which then becomes the issue because they would not need us for that. So in this case, the properties are now going to be further back and isolated by
No,
public
there's
sewer.
always going to have to be buffers, I can assure you. that.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely, you're right about
There have
that.
to be buffers, so buffers are gonna be there, the house is gonna be uphill. It's- Just get it done on a timely basis and I know it's not your money that's getting played with, but,
Absolutely, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition?
I also haven't sworn in.
Okay. And if you could please raise your right hand, as well as tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you.
My name is Michael Peach. I live at 31 Old Blood Road. I recently moved there about 6 months ago. Question, I guess, for you guys to be brought to the attention, moreover, that these gentlemen could probably answer. The very beginning, we referenced infrastructure and that it wouldn't be affected. My question for that is that the road's proposed to be built, or is that old blood? Because flat math, 77 houses, if we approve that, even 71, is that one car per house? Because that means there's an additional, probably at least 125 cars coming up and down my road, regardless of it being paved. And on top of that, my other question would be, I don't know if he can come back up and answer this. This is going to be connected to sell our souls for 6 houses to do sewers to bring it to the middle school. To me, that looks like it'd be walking distance for a middle schooler to walk back if they live in that area. Old Blood is very narrow. Even when the plows come back and do fine work, it's still a 1-car road. You're putting 2 of your wheels in a snowbank, regardless of the wintertime. Are they going to add sidewalks? Are sidewalks going to go down this road, or are children that live in this cluster going to be walking in the middle of an already narrow road? So my question for that is really, is the infrastructure being discussed for the proposed roads or the conditions that'll be improved on my road? If it's going to get built, it's going to get built. But if it's going to be in a school zone, I have children. I would like to think that they would safely be able to walk to and from school.
Absolutely. So your question is, the roads that are being proposed, will they have sidewalks? And
Well, not only that, but are our roads currently, when they get paved, are they going to be extended? Because if you pave just the flat road now, it's still maybe a lane and a half. The roads would need to be extended. And I'm more curious about
You're asking what the improvements proposed for Old Blood Road are, is that correct?
Correct. And also what we're going to do for infrastructure of upwards of 150 to 200 cars. Because for me, I maybe see 20 cars a day, but to go from 200, that kind of changes.
Well, what you're talking about, we've got 71 lots approved now, so you've got those roads now.
Yeah.
All we're talking about is an additional 6 homes, which traditionally would give you 12 more cars. We're
I
not
know,
talking
but-
about the massive number, because you've already got them now approved.
And that's fine. I'm
So-
only asking this because everything's been being pushed and withdrawn, and this is the first time I've been able to speak.
What's gonna happen with Old Blood Road is a perfectly legitimate question.
Okay.
All right. I think those are fair questions.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else for me to what I was asking, or?
No, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Attorney Michael, if you'd like to.
Thank you. I appreciate the thoughts of a couple of the abutters and people in the area. I want to make that clear. What I wanted to say, and I want to make it very clear, when I meant the drainage won't change, the drainage will be set up so that it won't change. By that I mean there'll be no more water or anything going off that land based upon the requirements of the planning board. That's what I mean by that. So it's not going to change much. And I think, Kevin, you'd agree with me that there's very little that's going to have to be changed or modified to bring in those 6 extra houses.
That's correct. We're bound by both the state and the town standards to not allow extra runoff off of the lot.
And the planning board's going to see this, and I'm sure that we'll have that question answered. Likewise with Old Blood Road, we're kicking in $75,000 to make further improvements to Old Blood Road, and this is all consistent with planning board approvals. Unfortunately, I don't believe that this gentleman was around for that. It will go back to the planning board as we have stated, and those same issues are good questions, right? But we don't believe that we went through very detailed traffic studies. The town reviewed the traffic studies. The town's consultants looked at the traffic studies. This went through almost 2 years of planning, design, and development. And we certainly will be back to the board and again showing those plans. And I think, Madam Christensen, you're correct, it's 6 more lots. We're not talking about anything dramatic here. What we're trying to do is make this work in a way that we think benefits the parcel and the town. Thank you.
I'd like to ask you,
Sure.
in reference to the question raised by the second
Go ahead.
abutter,
Yes.
is, do you have any plans around sidewalks?
That's all part of the planning board plans, and I don't have them in front of me right now.
But it is.
That's a planning board issue, and I think we do have some,
realize that.
I think there are sidewalks in part of this, and it would be foolish of me to speak out of school. I do not have all the final plans here tonight. That's not what we weren't here to come for a planning board meeting, but all of that is handled by the planning board. All of that is on the approved plans. And that all was discussed with the planning board.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this petition? All right, go ahead and close the public hearing for deliberation.
I have issues with a couple different points, ranging from hardship through to diminished values. I know it was explained. I kind of look back on the notes that I had in the past. I think I take up some of the original concerns that I had from the first meeting when I said no. So, 6 houses this time, 6 houses again. I mean, just, I kind of gonna go back on what I said originally about this plan, so, but, I mean, by all means, the board, I mean, you all have your own opinions on what you think or should not move forward. But, I have issue with a couple of the different points. I don't think that they're really been met, so that's my opinion.
So what are the points that you?
I don't find hardship at all. I really don't see the hardship. I just don't, I don't see that there is any hardship here for the extra 6 houses. I get why he wants to do it. He just wants to recoup some costs. You know, I was doing some calculations while he was talking. I actually even looked up what it cost to average house to be built in New Hampshire. And then did some calculations roughly based upon the lots. I mean, so I mean, based upon those numbers, I don't know. But again, I'm not a builder, so, but it seems like there's these houses are probably gonna go, based upon what I've read, I can't imagine these houses going out for anything less than 300, 400, 500,000, which in my personal opinion, that's not affordable housing in New Hampshire. I know this because I work in the staffing industry, and I know what people are paying for rent, and that is not affordable housing, in my opinion, on that, at least from what I've seen in 20 years of doing this. As far as public interest, I don't know if it's necessarily in the public interest. The spirit, I mean, the ordinance kind of met that because it ensured that they would keep everything together. Substantial justice. I mean, if they're gonna be fixing the sewer, then I guess there is substantial justice there, but I just don't see the hardship, so. But that's my take.
I would just like to comment, this, I don't believe, and I'm new to this proposal as it goes back, 4 or 5 years, and I'm just new to the board, but, I don't think their intent was to bring this to the town as affordable housing. I share your concern about lack of affordable housing. And when you look at the easiest solution to affordable housing, it's what developers would call a density bonus. Well, when I talk about a density bonus, it's not talking about having,
6 houses.
Lots that are half acre to an acre. We're talking about, almost row homes where they're, you're building on, an eighth of an acre, a 3-bedroom house. But we don't see those proposals coming to us in the town. So I just, as a comparison, so, I understand your concerns about affordable housing, Patrick, but that's not what their intent here is. And that's not being required of them by the town.
No, I'm not saying that it is, but it just,
I would like to see.
again,
more
I'm
affordable
just
housing
gonna
too.
stay on the hardship aspect of it, and just say that I just don't see I don't see a hardship here to require 6 more homes. That's, you asked me, that's what I say.
My only thought, and I've said this, I think one of the previous times we heard this particular property, is that they do have options to build that might not be as beneficial to the surrounding as what they're opting to build. So the addition of 6 properties to offset an unknown or unexpected cost, I think is a logical way to recoup funds. But if if we were to just go and outright deny this and they decide to build their 65 property grid
On septic,
on septic,
drainage is a whole nother issue.
yeah, that, I don't think anybody wins in that condition.
Couple of things, some related to Patrick's comments. Price of the house, that's gonna be based on demand. Right now, there's not much on the market. Drew, I'm sure can speak to that. In the price range of 250 to 350, or under 400, there's very little on the market. So if that's where the demand is, I'm sure that's what, I have no guarantee, but I'm sure that's what he's gonna be building to. Obviously, he'd like to be building the $500,000 and $600,000 homes because you make more money on them. But if you can't sell them because the demand is not there in this volume for that price, then I think it's gonna be based on the market. As far as public interest is concerned, this sewer issue that was allowed to happen when the middle school was built has been going on for way too long. Nothing's been done to resolve it. I think if this is a way of getting that sewer resolved right after all this time, it's worth giving the developer 6 additional homes to get that sewer in, because that sewer is gonna benefit everybody else along those lines. And it'll be at no cost to the taxpayer. So I think the public interest is absolutely, definitely met there. Reading through this, and I'll be perfectly honest, reading through this initially, I honestly didn't see a lot of the benefit. And I was kind of under the impression, here we go again, we want another 6 lots, and we want another 6 lots, and we want another 6 lots. But hearing the testimony, which is why you don't make up your mind until you've heard the testimony, I agree. I think it makes sense. And I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no more comment.
No, I was gonna make a motion, but you can.
Go ahead, Drew.
Okay. I make a motion that we grant Chestnut Hills Properties LLC variance under section 3.08.2 of the zoning ordinance to permit an approved but not yet constructed cluster residential development to have a density of 77 lots, where 71 lots are permitted per the variance granted January 30th, 2014. The parcels are located at Bannon Circle and Ritterbush Court, approved not constructed roads in the R1 residential by map district, tax map 5B, lots 002, 005, 007, 008, 009-01 through 009-71, case number 2019-51.
I'll second.
Subject to the
Subject to
conditions.
planning board approval.
Subject to planning board approval.
Okay, so,
And we'll ask the questions on the planning board.
with that being said, all in favor?
Aye,
You motion?
I did.
Well, yeah, 1 second. So, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All oppose? All abstain? 410?
Thank you for your
No,
time tonight.
yeah, 410, yep.
Appreciate it.
410.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Don't come back for 6 more. Don't want to hear it. I don't care what the septic's gonna cost you, don't come back for 6 more. I move we approve the minutes of November
Second.
20th as printed.
Second.
We skipped right over discussion of other
Yep.
items.
Yep, we did.
There were none.
What if I decided I wanted to discuss other items?
You can, then you can do it.
You have the floor.
You cannot accept the motion.
You discuss it, we'll be at Buckley's, let us know what you think.
All right, so motion to approve minutes made by Lynn,
Second.
second by Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain? So 401. Who wants to make?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
We may just barely make Buckley's. Are we all going? Sure.